So I am on the Socket.io website. At the time of recording this screencast, the active version shown is 1.4.4. However, the very next week it was upgraded to version 1.4.5. So I suggest you download that version. On the console, I'll type npm I, where I is a shorthand notation for install, followed by Socket.io and the usual ~save and save exact. I've not typed in the version here. However, I strongly suggest you do so as shown in previous videos. Once again, remember that this example works fine with version 1.4.5. Now let's go into our app's core index.js file and we'll create a Socket.io powered version of an HTTP server. So create a function called IOServer, which accepts an app instance since we would want to bring and bind in our Express app instance here. Then create a keyword called server where we'll bring in a server instance from the HTTP module like so. We are also passing in the app keyword here, which will let us bind our Express app to this newly created server instance. Once you have this, create a keyword called IO and bring in Socket.io like this. And invoke its constructor, binding in the newly created server instance like so. We will then return this server instance. Remember, we will not return the IO instance, but the server instance to which IO is already locked on. Now let's export this special instance of the server enhanced with Socket.io. In our server.js, in our listen statement down here, we'll remove the app instance and instead we'll replace it with the chatcat.io server, which is the method that we have just exported, and we'll inject the Express app instance like so. This app instance is then received in our IO server where it is bound to the HTTP server before Socket.io hooks on to this instance. Now all our Socket.io code will reside in a folder called Socket. So create the same and drop in an index.js file as usual. We will export out an anonymous function out of this index.js file. So that we can straight away use a require statement to bring that in to the IO server instance, and we'll execute passing in the reference to IO because this will be used for creating event listeners and for all things Socket.io. This require statement brings and executes all the Socket.io code that we will write in the context of our IO server function, while still allowing us to separate out the code into its own unique file. By now, this process should be quite familiar to you, including the way we inject dependencies and resources, such as the IO instance here. In the Socket module, we'll just export out an anonymous function like so, and we'll bring in our IO instance so that we can use it as needed.